Hey guys, tonight we begin not with ancient sorcery or a magical island, but with something far more intoxicating and treacherous. The music industry in the 1980s. Because believe it or not, backstabbing your own brother for a record label empire makes Game of Thrones look like a friendly family reunion. From neon-lit studios to Mediterranean exile, from synthesizers to shipwrecks, this is Shakespeare's Tempest reimagined, where magic is replaced by technology, spirits become sound engineers, and revenge is orchestrated with the precision of a platinum hit. So before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's drift into a world of 1980s excess, family betrayal, and a storm 12 years in the making. The year is 1983, and the Mediterranean sun bleeds orange and pink across the horizon of a private island that most of the world has forgotten. This is where legends go to die, or perhaps where they wait to be reborn. The island sits like a jewel in the crystalline waters between Ibiza and Formentera, accessible only by private boat or helicopter. Its beaches are pristine white sand, its cliffs dramatic limestone formations that tower over hidden caves. At the island's highest point stands a villa that was once a monastery, now converted into something far more decadent. A state-of-the-art recording studio compound, complete with glass walls that overlook the endless blue of the Mediterranean, satellite dishes that pierce the sky, and enough synthesizers and drum machines to soundtrack an entire generation's dreams. This is the domain of Prospero, a name that once commanded respect in every recording studio from London to Los Angeles, from New York to Tokyo. 12 years ago, Prospero was the most powerful music producer in the industry. He discovered bands that became movements. He crafted sounds that defined eras. He built an empire called Tempest Records that minted platinum albums like other companies printed business cards. His artists didn't just top charts. They changed culture itself. But power in the music industry is as fleeting as a hit single, and betrayal comes dressed in expensive suits and family ties. Prospero's younger brother, Antonio, had always lived in his shadow. While Prospero shaped the sound of a generation, Antonio managed the business side of Tempest Records, handling contracts and distribution deals, counting money while his brother counted measures and beats. But Antonio wanted more than the ledger books. He wanted the spotlight, the glory, the throne. 12 years ago, while Prospero was in the studio putting the finishing touches on what would have been his magnum opus, a triple album that would have redefined progressive rock, Antonio made his move. He conspired with Alonso, the head of the powerful Milano Media Group, and Sebastian, Alonso's ambitious younger brother who controlled radio syndication across Europe. Together they orchestrated a coup so swift and brutal that by the time Prospero understood what was happening, he had already lost everything. They doctored contracts. They bribed lawyers. They spread rumors of drug addiction and mental instability. They froze bank accounts and seized master tapes. When the dust settled, Prospero found himself stripped of his company, his reputation in tatters, his fortune confiscated. The industry he had built turned its back on him with the casual cruelty of a hit song falling off the charts. But Antonio made one critical mistake. Perhaps it was a sliver of remaining conscience, or perhaps it was simply oversight in the rush of his victory. He allowed Prospero to leave with his life, his then 3-year-old daughter Miranda, and just enough money to disappear. Prospero took that mercy and vanished into exile, landing eventually on this forgotten island with his child, determined to raise her far from the corruption and betrayal of the world he once dominated. Now Miranda is 15 years old, a child of the island who knows nothing of mainland decadence beyond what her father has told her. She has grown up with the sound of waves and synthesizers, with the sight of dolphins and recording equipment, with her father's stories of the music industry told like cautionary tales around evening fires. She is beautiful in that unconscious way of teenagers who have never learned to weaponize their looks, with sun-bleached hair that falls in waves past her shoulders and eyes that hold the green blue of the Mediterranean itself. She wears vintage band t-shirts and cut-off denim shorts, moves barefoot across the villa's marble floors, and has never attended a concert, never stood in a crowd of thousands, never felt the rush of music in a stadium. Her only companions besides her father are the handful of people who inhabit this exile with them. There is Ariel, a 24-year-old musical prodigy whom Prospero rescued from a predatory management contract 7 years ago. Ariel is gender fluid before the world has common language for such things, with a shock of bleached white hair, styled in an asymmetrical cut, liner dark eyes and fingers that can coax magic from any instrument. Ariel owes everything to Prospero and serves him with a devotion that borders on worship, handling the island's communication systems, maintaining the equipment, and creating the experimental electronic sounds that Prospero has been developing in exile. Then there is Caliban, and here the story grows darker. Caliban was the island's caretaker when Prospero first arrived, the son of a woman named Sycorax who had once been a famous flamenco guitarist before alcohol and pills destroyed her. Sycorax had owned the island, had built the initial studio, but had died shortly after Prospero arrived, leaving her song as a condition of the sale. Caliban is rough-edged and resentful, 30 years old with the weathered skin of someone who has spent his life in the sun and salt. He maintains the villa's grounds, fixes the solar panels and generators, catches fish, and tends the gardens, but he does so with barely concealed rage. Prospero had initially tried to educate him, to share with him the knowledge of music production and technology, but Caliban had attempted to assault Miranda when she was 13, and since that day, Prospero has kept him at a distance, treating him as little more than a servant, a necessary evil in their isolated existence. The villa itself is a contradiction. Ancient stone walls housing cutting-edge 1980s technology. The main recording studio occupies what was once the monastery's chapel, its vaulted ceilings now lined with acoustic foam and baffling. Banks of synthesizers line the walls. Roland Jupiter 8 South, Yamaha DX7 South, Prophet 5 South, their LED displays glowing like technological altars. Drum machines and sequencers create rhythms that pulse like electronic heartbeats. Reel-to-reel tape machines, some vintage from the 60s, others state-of-the-art from Japan, stand ready to capture any sound. Multi-track mixing boards with hundreds of faders and knobs dominate the center of the room, like the cockpit of some impossible aircraft. This is where Prospero spends his nights, bathed in the glow of VU meters and oscilloscopes, creating music that no one will ever hear, perfecting sounds for an audience of waves and seagulls. The villa's living spaces are equally eclectic. The stone walls are covered with gold and platinum records from Prospero's glory days. their frames now tarnished with sea air. Vintage concert posters from the 70s hang beside new wave promotional materials from the early 80s. A collection of guitars lines one wall Fender Stratocasters, Gibson Les Pauls, a rare Rickenbacker 12-string, each one a relic from a recording session, a memento of an artist now famous, now forgotten. The furniture is a mix of ancient Mediterranean comfort and modern Italian design. Leather couches beside stone archways, chrome and glass tables on terracotta floors, a massive television connected to a VHS player and a Betamax for good measure, their screens often displaying MTV when the satellite signal cooperates. Miranda's room is a teenage sanctuary decorated with images cut from the few magazines that make it to the island. Pictures of Duran Duran and Culture Club share wall space with her own drawings of the island's landscape. A Sony Walkman sits on her knitstand, its headphones perpetually tangled, loaded with mixtapes her father has made for her education. The Beatles flow into Blondie. Led Zeppelin transitions to Talking Heads, creating a musical timeline that is her only connection to the world beyond the water. But today, something is different. Today, Prospero has been in the studio since before dawn, and the air crackles with an energy that even Miranda can feel. She finds him surrounded by equipment, his hair still dark, but now threaded with silver wild from running his hands through it. He wears a white linen shirt unbuttoned at the collar, loose cotton pants, and is barefoot as always. His face, once smooth and confident in old album cover photos, now carries the weathered intensity of someone who has spent 12 years planning something terrible and necessary. "Ariel," he calls out, and within moments the young prodigy appears, wearing a vintage Bowie concert t-shirt and ripped jeans, arms covered in handmade bracelets and leather bands. Is everything ready? The satellite uplink, the communications monitoring, the weather tracking systems? Ariel nods enthusiastically, pulling out a small notebook filled with technical scribbles. "The storm is building exactly as predicted, Prospero. The meteorological data you've been tracking for months is all coming together. By sunset, there will be a massive electrical storm moving through the shipping lanes between here and Ibiza. Wind speeds approaching 70 knots, lightning activity off the charts, waves exceeding 5 meters. Prospero's eyes gleam with something that might be madness or might be genius in his world. The two have always been close companions. And the yacht? Antonio's yacht? The Milano lady left Ibiza Marina 3 hours ago, Ariel confirms, checking a printout from the radio equipment. Alonso Milano is aboard for his annual Mediterranean cruise. Antonio is with him, of course, Sebastian too, and Alonso's son, Ferdinand. Apparently he's some kind of teen idol now, has a new single climbing the charts. Prospero laughs, a sound without humor. My brother, still clinging to powerful men, still riding coattails to glory. And he's brought along Alonso's precious son, the pretty boy singer who probably can't tell a major chord from a minor scale without auto-tune. There's no auto-tune yet, Ariel corrects gently. That's not invented until... A metaphor, Ariel. Prospero cuts him off, but not unkindly. The point is that everything I've planned, everything I've prepared for these 12 years, comes to fruition today. That storm will drive them here, to this island, to my domain. And then, finally, I will have justice. Miranda appears in the studio doorway, her expression concerned. She has overheard enough to understand that something significant is happening. Father, what are you talking about? What storm? What justice? Prospero turns to his daughter, and his face softens in a way it only does for her. Miranda, my darling girl, today you will finally learn the truth about the world I protected you from. Today, the people who destroyed our lives will be delivered to us by wind and waves and lightning. Today, your education in the ways of power and betrayal begins. Outside, the sky has begun to darken, despite it being only early afternoon. Clouds are gathering on the horizon, massive thunderheads building like towers of slate and charcoal. The wind has picked up, causing the palm trees around the villa to sway and rustle. The Mediterranean, usually so calm and inviting, has taken on a darker hue, its surface choppy with whitecaps. Caliban emerges from the equipment shed near the beach, his calloused hands carrying rope and tools. He looks up at the darkening sky with the expertise of someone who has weathered many storms on this island. His face, tanned and lined, shows no concern, only the perpetual resentment that seems to be his natural expression. He wears a faded tank top and cargo shorts, his muscular frame built from years of physical labor. When he sees Prospero standing on the villa's terrace, staring out at the gathering tempest, something like a sneer crosses his features. "Another one of your grand plans?" Caliban mutters, loud enough for Prospero to hear. "Playing God with your satellites and your computers? This island belonged to my mother before you came with your money and your schemes." Prospero doesn't turn around. "Secure the equipment, Caliban. The solar panels, the generators, the satellite dishes. I need everything functional through the storm. And check the beach landing area. We may have visitors arriving sooner than expected." "Visitors," Caliban spits. "More people from your world come to contaminate this place further." But he moved to do the work anyway, because for all his resentment, he has nowhere else to go, no other life available to him. Inside the studio, Ariel is now seated at a complex array of electronic equipment that looks like something from a science fiction film. Multiple monitors display weather radar, radio frequencies, and what appears to be maritime tracking data. The equipment hums and beeps, its various displays casting colored light across Ariel's focused face. Fingers dance across a keyboard, making adjustments, fine-tuning frequencies. "I've tapped into the maritime emergency channels," Ariel reports. "The Milano Lady is still on course, heading straight into the storm system. They're maintaining speed, probably thinking they can outrun it to port. They have no idea what they're sailing into." Prospero moves to stand behind Ariel, watching the screens with the intensity of a conductor about to begin a symphony. "And our transmission equipment? The electromagnetic pulse generators I had you build?" "Ready," Ariel confirms. "When the storm reaches its peak, I can amplify the natural electromagnetic interference, create havoc with their navigation systems, their radio communications, their engines' electronic controls. They'll be completely blind, completely helpless. The storm will do the rest, drive them straight onto our beach." Miranda has been listening from the doorway, her expression growing more disturbed with each revelation. "Father, you're going to deliberately crash their boat? People could die. How is this justice? This is murder." Prospero whirls to face his daughter, and for a moment his expression is fierce, almost frightening. But then he crosses to her, takes her hands in his, and when he speaks his voice is gentle despite the fire in his eyes. "No one will die, my sweet Miranda. I promise you that. This is theater, carefully choreographed. The storm is real, yes, but I've calculated everything. They'll run aground on the northern beach, where the sand is soft and the approach is shallow. Frightening, Certainly. Humbling, absolutely. But not lethal. I am not a murderer. I am simply an artist staging the most important performance of my life. But why? Miranda's eyes search her father's face, looking for the man who has been her teacher, her protector, her entire world. Why now, after all these years? Prospero releases her hands and walks to the window, watching the storm grow. Lightning flickers in the distance, brief illuminations that momentarily turn the dark clouds silver. Because, my daughter, there are debts that must be settled. There are wrongs that must be righted. And because you are 15 now, almost a woman, and you deserve to know the truth about your family, about what was stolen from us, about the legacy that should have been yours. He turns back to her, his silhouette dramatic against the storm-lit window. Today, the people who destroyed us will be brought low. Today, they will be at my mercy as I was once at theirs. And then, perhaps, we can finally leave this island. Perhaps we can finally go home. Outside, the storm has arrived in full force. Rain begins to hammer against the villa's windows, driven nearly horizontal by the wind. The sea has transformed into a churning mass of gray-green water, waves crashing against the cliffs with explosive force. Thunder rolls across the sky like the drums of war, and lightning turns the afternoon into a strobing nightmare of illumination and darkness. And somewhere out in that chaos, a luxury yacht called the Milano Lady fights for survival, its passengers unaware that they are sailing not just into a storm, but into a carefully orchestrated reckoning, 12 years in the making. The Milano Lady is a monument to excess, a 120-foot yacht that gleams white and chrome, even under the darkening sky. Its decks are teak wood polished to perfection. Its interior is all cream leather, brass fixtures, and mahogany panels. The main salon features a full bar with mirrored backing, a sound system that cost more than most people's homes, and original artwork from Warhol and Hockney mounted on the walls. This is where the powerful come to play, where deals worth millions are sealed with champagne and handshakes, where the Mediterranean becomes a private playground for those who believe the world exists for their pleasure. In the main salon, as the storm begins to reveal its true ferocity, 4 men are scattered across the luxurious space, their earlier confidence now giving way to concern. Antonio Dante stands near the bar, gripping a glass of scotch, as the yacht begins to pitch more violently with each wave. He is 50 years old now, still handsome in that polished way of men who have had everything given to them. His hair is styled with product that somehow holds even in humidity, his linen suit perfectly tailored, his Italian loafers soft as butter. A thick gold chain hangs around his neck, and his Rolex catches the light whenever he moves. He looks like success, smells like expensive cologne, and carries himself with the assurance of someone who has never faced real consequences. Alonso, perhaps we should have listened to the weather reports, Antonio suggests, trying to keep his voice casual despite the obvious anxiety creeping in. This seems more serious than your captain anticipated. Alonso Milano sits in a leather armchair that's bolted to the floor, a necessity now that the yacht is heaving with increasing violence. He is 62, silver-haired and distinguished, wearing a navy blazer with brass buttons, white pants, and deck shoes that have never seen actual deck work. He built Milano Media Group from a single radio station into an empire that spans television, print, and music distribution across Europe. He is accustomed to controlling narratives, to shaping public opinion, to making or breaking careers with a phone call. But he cannot control the weather, and this reality is beginning to show in the tightness around his eyes. Captain Rodriguez knows these waters, Alonso insists, but his voice lacks its usual authority. We've made this crossing dozens of times. We'll swing north, find calmer waters, wait out the worst of it. Sebastian Milano, Alonso's younger brother by 5 years, paces near the windows, watching the waves grow into mountains of water. He is dressed more casually than the others. Designer jeans, a polo shirt with the collar popped, a leather jacket draped over his shoulders. His face is harder than his brother's, carrying the look of a man who has done the dirty work while others took the credit. He controls the radio syndication network that can make a song a hit or ensure it never gets airplay, and he wields this power with a cruelty that his brother finds distasteful but useful. "We should have been in port 2 hours ago," Sebastian snaps, his pacing growing more agitated. "This is insane. The swells are 20 feet at least. Look at that." He gestures violently at a window just as a wave crashes against it, sending spray across the glass. The fourth person in the salon is different from the others, younger and less comfortable in this world of wealth and power. Ferdinand Milano is 19 years old, Alonso's only son, and currently the newest sensation in European pop music. His single, Midnight Venice, has been climbing the charts for 6 weeks. His face appears on magazine covers from London to Rome, and teenage girls scream his name at mall appearances and radio station events. He is beautiful in that androgynous way that defines 1980s pop stars. High cheekbones, full lips, dark eyes lined with just enough kohl to look dangerous, hair styled in an elaborate cascade of carefully messy curls. He wears a white silk shirt unbuttoned to mid-chest, tight black jeans, and ankle boots with Cuban heels. Multiple silver chains hang around his neck, and rings adorn nearly every finger. But right now, Ferdinand Milano looks terrified. His carefully constructed image of cool detachment has crumbled as the yacht struggles against the storm. He sits on a couch, gripping the armrest with white knuckles, his olive complexion gone pale. "Father," he says, and his voice cracks slightly, revealing the teenager beneath the pop star persona. "Father, this doesn't feel right. Something is very wrong." Before Alonso can respond with reassurance, the yacht lurches violently to starboard, throwing everyone off balance. The sound of breaking glass fills the air as bottles fall from the bar. Antonio's scotch flies from his hand, amber liquid arcing through the air before the glass shatters against a wall. Sebastian is thrown against the window he had been looking through, his shoulder hitting the reinforced glass with a painful thud. The captain's voice crackles over the intercom, stringed and urgent. "All passengers need to put on life jackets immediately. We're experiencing complete electrical failure. Navigation is down, engines are not responding, radio is dead. I repeat, put on life jackets now." The lights in the salon flicker once, twice, then die completely, leaving only the gray stormlight filtering through the windows and the emergency battery-powered lights that kick on with an eerie red glow. The sound of the engines, which had been a constant background rumble, suddenly stops, leaving only the howl of wind and the crash of waves against the hull. What the hell is happening? Sebastian shouts, having to yell to be heard over the storm. Complete electrical failure? This yacht is brand new. The electronics are supposed to be state-of-the-art. Antonio is already moving toward the emergency cabinet, his hands shaking as he pulls out bright orange life jackets. "Here, everyone put these on. "Ferdinand, come on, son, get yours on." The yacht is now pitching so violently that walking becomes nearly impossible. Ferdinand struggles to his feet, stumbling across the salon as the floor tilts at impossible angles. His father reaches out to steady him, and for a moment the powerful media mogul is just a father fear playing on his distinguished face. "I've got you," Alonso says, helping his son into the life jacket, his fingers fumbling with the buckles and straps. "We're going to be fine." The Milano lady is built to withstand anything, but even as he speaks, there is a terrible grinding sound from below, the unmistakable noise of the yacht's hull scraping against something solid. The vessel shudders from bow to stern, and everyone is thrown forward as the yacht suddenly decelerates, as if a giant hand has reached up from the depths to grab it. "We've hit something," Sebastian screams. "We've run aground." The yacht tilts at a severe angle, listing hard to port. Everything not bolted down begins sliding across the salon. Bottles, glasses, magazines, ashtrays, all tumbling in a cascade of expensive debris. The Warhol painting tears free from its mounting and crashes to the floor, its frame splintering. Water begins pouring in from somewhere, rushing across the tilted floor in a foaming torrent. Through the windows, barely visible through the driving rain and spray, a coastline materializes like something from a fever dream. Rocky cliffs rise from churning water, and beyond them, impossibly, there are lights. A building, large and sprawling, sits atop the cliffs, partially obscured by the storm but unmistakably there. Palm trees bend nearly double in the wind. This is not open ocean. They have been driven onto an island. The captain's voice returns over the intercom, now openly panicked. "Abandoned ship. All passengers to the starboard side. We're taking on water fast. There's a beach approximately 50 meters off the starboard bow. You need to get to shore now." The crew appears in the salon doorway, 3 men in white uniforms, their professional composure cracked by terror. The head steward, a man named Gonzalo, who has worked for the Milano family for 15 years, takes charge immediately, despite his fear. "Gentlemen, please, this way," Gonzalo shouts, gesturing toward the starboard exit. He is 55, gray-haired and barrel-chested, wearing his steward's uniform now soaked with seawater and rain. There is an emergency raft deploying. "We must move quickly." They struggle toward the exit, the tilting deck making every step treacherous. Ferdinand slips on the wet floor and goes down hard, crying out. Antonio, despite his own terror, helps the young man up, and for a moment there is something almost decent in his action, a flash of the brother Prospero once knew before ambition poisoned him. Outside on the deck, the storm is a physical assault. Rain doesn't fall so much as it attacks, driven by wind that tears at clothing and skin. The waves tower above the yacht, walls of water that seem impossible, apocalyptic. Lightning splits the sky in jagged forks, turning the world into a negative image of itself, black sky, white water, everything reversed and wrong. The emergency raft has deployed automatically, a large inflatable orange platform tethered to the yacht by a rope. It bucks and heaves in the water like a living thing trying to escape. The crew is shouting instructions that are barely audible over the storm's roar. "Jump, one at a time. Jump to the raft." Gonzalo is yelling, his voice hoarse. Sebastian goes first, leaping the gap between yacht and raft, landing hard but safely, immediately grabbing the rope handles to steady himself. Antonio follows, his expensive loafers slipping on the wet deck before he launches himself across the churning gap, landing in a heap on the raft. "Ferdinand, you next," Alonso shouts to his son, but Ferdinand is frozen with fear, staring at the gap, at the water churning between the yacht and the raft, water so violent it seemed hungry. "I can't," Ferdinand screams. "Father, I can't." Another wave crashes over the deck, and the yacht groans with a sound like a dying animal. The list increases further, and suddenly the raft is drifting, the tether beginning to stretch as the current pulls at it. "Now, Ferdinand, there's no time." Gonzalo grabs the young pop star and physically pushes him toward the gap. Ferdinand jumps more from momentum than courage, his arms windmilling, and he hits the raft awkwardly, nearly bouncing off before Sebastian grabs him and hauls him to safety. Alonso jumps next, landing beside his son, wrapping him in a protective embrace. The crew members follow in quick succession, professional, efficient, trained for emergencies they never believed would happen. Gonzalo is the last, cutting the tether with a knife from his belt just as another massive wave crashes over the Milano lady. The raft is suddenly free, caught in the current, spinning as it's driven toward the beach that is barely visible through the storm. They can do nothing but hold on as wind and water carry them, as lightning illuminates their terrified faces in brief, stark flashes. The raft hits waves that lift it into the air, drops into troughs that feel like falling into abysses. And then, with a violence that seems impossible to survive, the raft hits the beach. It doesn't land so much as it crashes, driven by a wave that picks it up and hurls it forward onto white sand. The impact throws everyone from the raft, bodies tumbling across the beach in a tangle of limbs and orange life jackets. For a long moment, no one moves. They lie on the sand as rain pounds down on them, as wind screams overhead, as lightning continues to split the sky. Slowly, one by one, they begin to stir, checking themselves for injuries, realizing with stunned disbelief that they are alive. Ferdinand is on his hands and knees, vomiting seawater onto the pristine sand, his carefully styled hair now plastered to his head, his silk shirt torn and transparent with water. The pop star image is completely destroyed. He looks like what he is, a terrified teenager who has just survived something traumatic. Antonio crawls away from the water, his expensive suit ruined, one of his loafers missing, his gold chain tangled around his neck. He collapses onto his back, chest heaving, staring up at the storm-dark sky with eyes that don't quite focus. Sebastian is cursing, a steady stream of profanity in Italian and English, expressing rage at the storm, at the yacht, at whatever gods allowed this to happen. His leather jacket is gone, his polo shirt ripped at the shoulder, where he hit the window earlier. Alonso has found his son, pulled Ferdinand away from the water's edge, and holds him as the young man shivers violently, despite the warm rain. The powerful media mogul looks older now, diminished, his silver hair dark with water, his blazer hanging on him like a weight. Gonzalo is already taking inventory of their situation with the practiced efficiency of someone trained for crisis management. Is anyone seriously injured? He calls out, his voice cutting through the storm. Can everyone move? The crew members respond affirmatively, though one is favoring his left leg, limping as he moves up the beach away from the water. The other two are helping each other stand, both bleeding from minor cuts, but otherwise intact. We need to find shelter. Gonzalo continues. This storm isn't passing quickly. We need to get out of this wind and rain. Sebastian points up the beach toward the cliffs, where through the driving rain they can now see more clearly the building they glimpsed from the yacht. There's some kind of structure up there. Lights. That means people, means help, means getting off this godforsaken rock. They begin to move, a bedraggled group stumbling across the sand, supporting each other, driven by the basic human need for shelter and safety. The beach is littered with debris from the Milano lady cushions, life rings, pieces of teak decking, a floating cooler that has somehow made it to shore. One of the crew members grabs the cooler, thinking of supplies, of survival. As they climb the path from the beach toward the cliffs, the building above becomes more defined. It is massive, an old stone structure that might once have been a monastery or fortress, now clearly converted into something else. Solar panels cover parts of the roof. Satellite dishes point at the sky. Large glass windows reflect the lightning. It looks simultaneously ancient and modern, a place out of time. Ferdinand, supported by his father and Gonzalo, looks up at the building with exhausted confusion. "Where are we?" he manages to ask through chattering teeth. "What is this place?" No one has an answer. They are somewhere in the Mediterranean, driven by a storm onto an island that appears on no charts they consulted, approaching a building that shouldn't exist, seeking help from whoever might inhabit this strange refuge. As they reach the top of the path, they find themselves on a terrace of smooth stone. The building looms before them, its entrance a massive wooden door set in an archway. Lights glow from within, warm and inviting against the storm's chaos. Antonio is the first to reach the door. With the last of his strength, he pounds on it with his fist, the sound barely audible over the thunder. "Hello," he screams. "Is anyone here? We need help. We've been shipwrecked. Please." For a moment, nothing. Just the storm's howl, the rain's assault, the thunder's percussion. And then the door opens. Standing in the doorway, backlit by the warm glow of interior lights, is a figure they cannot quite make out at first. A man, tall and lean, wearing white linen, his dark hair shot through with silver, his face in shadow. Antonio stares at the figure, and something in his expression shifts from relief to confusion to a dawning, impossible horror. Because even after 12 years, even with silver in his hair and lines on his face, Antonio recognizes his brother. "Hello, Antonio," Prospero says, his voice calm and clear despite the storm. "Welcome to my island. I've been expecting you." The color drains from Antonio's face so completely that even in the storm's dim light, the transformation is visible. His mouth opens, closes, opens again, but no sound emerges. He takes an involuntary step backward, nearly stumbling into Sebastian behind him. "Prospero?" The name comes out as barely a whisper, lost in the wind. Then louder, edged with panic. "Prospero? No, that's impossible. You can't be what, brother?" Prospero steps further into the doorway, and now the light fully illuminates his face. 12 years have changed him, hardened him, but the resemblance is unmistakable. Can't be alive? Can't be here? Can't be the owner of this island you've just washed up on by pure chance? His smile is cold, knowing. There's no chance, Antonio. There's only design. Alonso Milano pushes forward, his executive instincts overriding his exhaustion. Even soaked and bedraggled, he tries to assert authority. "Prospero Dante? Is that really you? My God, we thought everyone thought you had disappeared completely. Maybe died somewhere in South America or Asia. You vanished 12 years ago." "I didn't vanish," Prospero corrects, his voice carrying an edge like a knife. I was exiled, stripped of everything I'd built, everything I created, by men standing on this very terrace. By you, Alonso, by your brother Sebastian, and most painfully by my own blood. He looks directly at Antonio, and the younger brother actually flinches. Sebastian, recovering from his shock, tries aggression. Now wait just a minute. If you think you can, I think I can offer you shelter from the storm, Prospero interrupts smoothly. I think I can provide you with dry clothes, warm food, and a place to rest until this tempest passes. What did you think I was going to do, Sebastian? Leave you to die in the rain? I am many things, but I am not a savage. He steps aside, gesturing into the warmth of the villa. Please, come in. All of you. Even enemies deserve hospitality when nature itself has brought them low. Gonzalo moves first, his practical nature overriding the complex politics unfolding. Thank you, sir. You are most generous. These men need warmth and medical attention. He helps Ferdinand forward, the young pop star still shivering violently, barely aware of the conversation happening around him. They file inside, a processional of the defeated entering the domain of their former victim. The interior of the villa is a shock after the storm's violence warm, dry, filled with soft light from lamps and the glow of electronic equipment. The contrast between ancient stone walls and modern technology creates a surreal atmosphere, like stepping into the future by way of the past. Ariel appears from a side corridor, carrying an armful of towels and blankets. The sight of this androgynous figure with bleached white hair, dramatic makeup, and vintage punk rock aesthetic startles the new arrivals. Ariel moves with fluid grace, distributing towels without making eye contact, obeying Prospero's unspoken command. Ariel will show you to rooms where you can change into dry clothes. Prospero announces, I'm afraid our wardrobe options are limited, but you'll find them sufficient. There is hot water for showers, and the kitchen is preparing soup and bread. We may be isolated, but we are not primitive. It is at this moment that Miranda appears at the top of the stone staircase that curves down into the main hall. She has been watching from above, her curiosity overwhelming her father's instruction to stay in her room. She descends slowly, her bare feet silent on the stone steps, her sun-bleached hair falling around her shoulders, wearing a simple white cotton dress that seems to glow in the warm light. She has never seen so many people at once, never seen strangers, never encountered anyone from the world beyond her island. Her eyes are wide with wonder and uncertainty as she takes in the bedraggled group, the older men in their ruined, expensive clothes, the crew members in their torn uniforms, and then, inevitably, Ferdinand Milano, despite being soaked, exhausted, and traumatized, is still beautiful. Even with his carefully constructed image destroyed, perhaps especially because of it, there is something genuine in his face now, something vulnerable that his pop star persona usually conceals. When he sees Miranda descending the stairs, he stops moving entirely, stops breathing, stops thinking. He has been surrounded by beautiful people his entire life, models, actresses, dancers, the carefully curated perfection of the entertainment industry. But Miranda is something else entirely, something beyond the artificial beauty he knows. She is natural, untouched by makeup or styling, her beauty as unself-conscious as the island itself. She moves like someone who has never learned to be watched, who has never performed for an audience. Father? Miranda's voice is soft but clear. Who are these people? Are they hurt? Prospero's expression when he looks at his daughter is complex. Love and pride mixed with something darker, something calculating. These, my dear Miranda, are visitors from the world I have kept you from. They have survived a shipwreck, and we are providing them sanctuary. Miranda reaches the bottom of the stairs and approaches the group with genuine concern, her compassion immediate and unguarded. You must have been so frightened. The storm was terrible, even from inside. To be on the water, she trails off, her empathy visible on her face. She looks at each person in turn, and when her eyes meet Ferdinand's, something passes between them that is almost visible, almost tangible, a connection instant and profound, the kind of recognition that transcends logic. Ferdinand cannot look away from her. His world, which has consisted of concert venues and recording studios, of television appearances and magazine photo shoots, suddenly contracts to the space around this girl who looks at him with such open, unguarded kindness. He tries to speak, but his voice catches, and he has to clear his throat. "I thank you," he manages. "You're very kind. Even these simple words feel inadequate, feel wrong." He wants to say something profound, something memorable, but his usual confidence has been washed away by the storm. Alonso notices his son's reaction immediately, and a flicker of concern crosses his weathered face. He has seen Ferdinand mobbed by fans, has watched teenage girls throw themselves at his son, has witnessed the calculated seductions of industry professionals twice Ferdinand's age. But this is different. This looks dangerous in a way those encounters never were, because Ferdinand's expression shows something Alonso has never seen before: genuine emotion, unfiltered and raw. "Miranda," Prospero's voice cuts through the moment like a blade. "Please return to your room. Our guests need to change and rest. You can meet them properly later when they are recovered." Miranda reluctantly tears her gaze from Ferdinand, looking at her father with confusion at his sharp tone. "But father, shouldn't I help?" You need to obey," Prospero says, his voice softer now but no less firm. "Ariel will handle our guests' needs. Go. Now." Miranda hesitates, glancing once more at Ferdinand, a look that promises something, though what neither of them could articulate before turning and ascending the stairs. Ferdinand watches her go, his eyes tracking her movement until she disappears from view. Ariel efficiently organizes the survivors, leading them in different directions through the villa's corridors. The 3 crew members will share the guest quarters on the east wing. Ariel announces in a voice that is neither masculine nor feminine, musical and precise: "Gonzalo, you'll have the blue room. Antonio and Sebastian, the twin rooms on the second floor. Alonso and Ferdinand, the suite overlooking the southern terrace." As the group begins to disperse, Prospero calls out, "Antonio." A word, alone. The brothers face each other in the main hall as the others disappear into the villa's depths. Outside, the storm continues its assault, but inside, a different kind of tempest is brewing. Antonio's initial shock has given way to a defensive wariness. He stands with his arms crossed, one expensive loafer on, one foot bare, his ruined suit dripping onto the ancient stone floor. "This is quite the coincidence," Antonio says, his voice attempting nonchalance and failing. "Of all the islands in the Mediterranean, we wash up on yours." Prospero's laugh is cold and mirthless. "There are no coincidences, brother, only carefully executed plans. I have been tracking Milano's yacht for 3 months, waiting for the perfect confluence of weather patterns and travel schedules. I have equipment on this island that can manipulate electromagnetic fields, that can amplify natural atmospheric conditions, that can turn a moderate storm into a targeted catastrophe. You didn't wash up here by chance. I brought you here. The admission hangs in the air between them. Antonio's face cycles through emotions, disbelief, anger, fear, and finally a kind of resigned understanding. You're insane. 12 years alone on this rock have made you completely insane. Insane? Prospero moves closer, his intensity filling the space between them. I have spent 12 years perfecting my craft while you've spent them profiting from my stolen legacy. I have watched from exile as you've run Tempest Records into mediocrity, as you've signed talentless pretty boys and manufactured girl groups, as you've turned what I built into just another soulless machine, churning out disposable pop. You've made millions off my name while I've made art no one will ever hear. Tell me, brother, which of us is truly insane? Antonio's defensive posture cracks slightly. What do you want, Prospero? Revenge, to kill us, to keep us prisoner here? I want, Prospero says slowly, deliberately, exactly what you took from me. I want acknowledgement. I want truth. I want justice. And most of all, I want you to understand what you did, to feel what I felt, to lose everything just as I did. He turns away, moving toward the studio corridor. You have the run of the villa, all of you. Eat, rest, recover. The storm will last through the night. Tomorrow, when the sun rises, we will have a reckoning. Until then, consider yourselves my guests. He pauses at the doorway, looking back over his shoulder. Oh, and Antonio, stay away from my daughter. If you so much as speak to her without my permission, guest privileges end immediately. Are we clear? Antonio nods mutely, and Prospero disappears into the depths of the villa, leaving his brother standing alone in the hall, dripping and defeated. In the suite overlooking the southern terrace, Alonso helps his son out of his ruined clothes, wrapping him in thick blankets despite the warmth. Ferdinand sits on the edge of an ornate bed, staring at nothing, clearly in shock. That girl, Ferdinand says quietly. Father, did you see her? Alonso's concern deepens. Yes, I saw her. Prospero's daughter. Ferdinand, listen to me carefully. That man is dangerous. This whole situation is dangerous. We need to be very careful here. She was like no one I've ever met. Ferdinand continues as if his father hasn't spoken. Everyone I know is performing, always performing. But she was just real. Alonso grips his son's shoulders, forcing Ferdinand to look at him. Real or not, she is the daughter of a man who just admitted to deliberately causing our shipwreck. A man who has spent 12 years planning revenge against us. Against me, against Sebastian, against Antonio. You cannot get involved with her. Do you understand? But Ferdinand's eyes have that distant look of someone already lost to something beyond reason. At 19, he has had his share of romance's brief, superficial encounters with models and actresses, relationships that existed more for publicity than passion. But in the few seconds of eye contact with Miranda, he felt something he has never experienced before, something that all his hit songs claim to describe, but which he has never truly understood until this moment. Elsewhere in the villa, in a sparse room that smells of machine oil and salt air, Caliban watches the newcomers through a window overlooking the courtyard. He has seen their arrival, has watched Prospero play the gracious host to these wealthy men from the world that rejected him. Caliban's scarred hands grip the window-sill until his knuckles go white. More of them, he mutters to himself, his voice rough and bitter. More people from his world coming to corrupt this place further. This island was my mother's, should be mine. But he treats me like a slave while he welcomes these strangers like honored guests. He thinks of Miranda, of the girl he watched grow up, the girl he desired and tried to claim, the girl whose rejection turned Prospero completely against him. Now she has looked at that pretty boy with the styled hair and delicate features with wonder in her eyes, and Caliban feels a rage building in his chest like a storm to match the one outside. In the kitchen, Gonzalo works alongside Ariel, preparing food despite his exhaustion. The loyal steward has always been a practical man, someone who finds purpose in action rather than despair in crisis. He watches Ariel move with fluid efficiency, noting the way this strange young person handles kitchen implements with the same grace they showed distributing towels. "You've been with Prospero a long time?" Gonzalo asks, slicing bread with a knife Ariel provided. 7 years, Ariel responds, stirring a pot of soup on a modern electric stove installed in what was once a monastery kitchen. He saved me from a contract that would have destroyed me. I was 17, signed to a producer who... Ariel trails off, the memory clearly painful. Prospero bought out my contract, brought me here, taught me everything. Music production, electronic engineering, sound design. He gave me freedom when everyone else wanted to own me. He seems to inspire loyalty, Gonzalo observes carefully. He earned it, Ariel says simply. Whatever he's planning with your employers, they must have done something terrible to warrant this. Prospero is many things obsessive, intense, sometimes frightening, but he is not cruel, without cause. Upstairs, Antonio and Sebastian huddle in one of the twin rooms, speaking in urgent whispers. Both have showered and changed into clothes provided by their host. Simple cotton pants and shirts that fit adequately, if not perfectly. The contrast between these plain garments and their usual expensive attire is jarring. "This is a nightmare," Sebastian hisses. "He's completely insane. He caused the shipwreck. He admitted it. We could have died." Antonio paces the small room, his mind racing through options and finding none acceptable. He wants something. Revenge, obviously, but what form will it take? Does he want money? The company back? Public acknowledgement of what we did? What we did was business, Sebastian snaps. He was weak, distracted, more interested in artistic integrity than profit margins. We did what needed to be done. We stole from him, Antonio says quietly, the admission surprising even himself. We stole his company, his reputation, his life's work, and I betrayed my own brother. My blood? Sebastian looks at him with disgust. Don't go soft now. Guilt is useless. We need to figure out how to get off this island, how to get back to civilization, how to bury this situation before it becomes a problem. But even as he speaks, both men know they are powerless. They are on Prospero's island, in Prospero's domain, completely at his mercy. The storm rages outside, cutting them off from any possibility of rescue or escape. They can only wait for morning, for whatever reckoning their host has planned. In her room at the top of the villa, Miranda sits by her window, watching lightning illuminate the churning sea. She is thinking about the young man with the exhausted eyes, the one who looked at her as if seeing something miraculous. She has read about romance in the books her father provided, has heard it in the love songs on her mixtapes, but has never experienced it herself, has never even met someone her own age before. She wonders what his life is like, what the world beyond the island holds, what it would be like to be seen by someone other than her father and their small household. The possibility of it thrills and terrifies her in equal measure. Outside, the storm reaches its crescendo, thunder shaking the ancient stones of the villa, lightning turning night into day in brief, violent flashes. The Milano lady, visible in the distance, lists heavily in the shallows, broken and defeated. And in his studio, surrounded by synthesizers and computers, Prospero watches screens that show every room in the villa, every guest, every movement. His plan is unfolding perfectly. Morning arrives with deceptive gentleness. The storm has passed, leaving the sky washed clean and impossibly blue. The Mediterranean sparkles like crushed diamonds under the early sun, giving no indication of the violence it displayed mere hours ago. The air is fresh, salt-tinged, carrying the cry of seagulls and the distant crash of waves against the northern cliffs. Miranda wakes early, as she always does, but today feels different. She dresses carefully, choosing a yellow sundress she rarely wears, brushing her hair until it shines, even applying a touch of lip gloss she found months ago in a box of her father's old belongings. She doesn't fully understand why she's doing this, only that she wants to see the young man from last night again, wants to know if he was real or just a dream conjured by the storm's intensity. She finds him already awake, standing on the southern terrace, looking out at the wreckage of the Milano lady in the distance. He has showered and changed into borrowed clothes, white linen pants, and a loose cotton shirt, both too big for his slender frame. Without his carefully styled hair and stage clothes, he looks younger, more vulnerable, but no less beautiful. The morning light catches the angles of his face, and Miranda feels her breath catch in a way that is entirely new to her. "You couldn't sleep either?" she says softly, not wanting to startle him. Ferdinand turns, and when he sees her, his expression transforms. A smile spreads across his face, genuine and unguarded in a way his publicist would never approve. "I slept a little, but I kept waking up, wondering if yesterday really happened." If he really happened, Miranda moves to stand beside him at the terrace wall, maintaining a careful distance, but feeling the space between them like something charged and electric. "I'm real, and you're real, though I still don't know your name." "Ferdinand," he says. "Ferdinand Milano. Though right now I wish it was anything else." "Why?" Miranda's confusion is genuine. "What's wrong with your name?" "Because my father is one of the men who destroyed your father," Ferdinand says quietly. "And that makes me—" "I don't know what that makes me, but probably someone you shouldn't be talking to." Miranda considers this, her expression thoughtful. "My father has spent my entire life teaching me that people should be judged by their own actions, not by their family name or their history. It would be hypocritical of me to reject you because of what your father did." Ferdinand looks at her with wonder. "How old are you?" 15. "Almost 16. You sound older," he says. "Wiser than anyone I know in the music business, and they're all twice your age." "The music business?" Miranda's eyes light up. "You work in music, like my father did?" Ferdinand laughs, a sound containing both amusement and embarrassment. "I'm a pop singer, or I was. I have a single on the charts, appear on television shows, do photo shoots for magazines. It all seemed so important 2 days ago. Now it feels ridiculous." "Sing something for me," Miranda requests suddenly, her enthusiasm childlike and charming. "What now?" Ferdinand is caught off guard. "Please? I've never heard anyone sing in person except my father, and he only sings to demonstrate technique. I want to hear you." Ferdinand hesitates, feeling more nervous than he has before any concert, any television appearance. But there is something in Miranda's expectant expression that makes him want to try. He takes a breath and begins to sing, not one of his manufactured pop hits, but something older, simpler, a Beatles song his mother used to sing to him before she died when he was very young. Blackbird singing in the dead of night, take these broken wings and learn to fly. His voice, stripped of studio production and backing tracks, is actually quite beautiful, a clear tenor with real emotion behind it. Miranda listens with complete attention, and when he finishes there are tears in her eyes. "That was beautiful," she whispers. So beautiful. Before Ferdinand can respond, Prospero's voice cuts through the moment like a knife through silk. Miranda, inside, now. They both turn to find Prospero standing in the terrace doorway, his expression dark and unreadable. He has clearly been watching them, and his displeasure radiates like heat. "But, Father, we were just—" "Inside," Prospero repeats, his tone allowing no argument. Miranda flashes Ferdinand an apologetic look before obeying, disappearing into the villa. Prospero remains in the doorway, studying Ferdinand with an intensity that makes the young man want to back away. "You're Alonso's son," Prospero says, "and it's not a question. The pop star. The pretty boy with the empty songs and manufactured image." Ferdinand wants to argue, to defend himself, but finds he can't. Everything Prospero is saying feels true in a way it never did before meeting Miranda. "Yes, sir." "That's me. And already you're sniffing around my daughter like every other predatory male in the music industry, seeing an innocent girl as a conquest, something to use and discard." "No." Ferdinand's response is immediate and passionate. "No, it's not like that at all. I would never, she's not." He struggles to find words that won't sound hollow or rehearsed. "I've never met anyone like her. She's real." Prospero's expression shifts slightly, something that might be surprise flickering across his face. "Real," he repeats. What an interesting word choice. He moves onto the terrace, leaning against the wall where Miranda stood moments before. "Tell me, Ferdinand Milano, what do you know about your father's business practices? About how Milano Media Group operates?" Ferdinand is caught off guard by the question. I don't really involve myself in business. I just sing, do appearances, whatever my manager schedules." "How convenient," Prospero says dryly, "to reap the benefits of corruption while maintaining willful ignorance of its source. Your father, along with his brother and my own brother, stole everything from me 12 years ago. It destroyed my career, took my company, left me with nothing but my daughter and enough money to disappear. Did you know that?" Ferdinand shakes his head, feeling sick. "No, my father never. He doesn't talk about business with me. I was only 7 when that happened." 7, Prospero considers this. "So you truly are innocent, or at least ignorant, which is a form of innocence." He turns to look directly at Ferdinand, and his gaze is piercing. "Let me be clear. You are not to speak to Miranda without my permission. You are not to be alone with her. You are not to fill her head with romantic fantasies about your glittering world of fame and fortune. She has been protected from that corruption her entire life, and I will not allow you to undo 15 years of careful parenting. Do you understand? Do you understand?" Prospero's voice is steel. "Yes, sir," Ferdinand says quietly, feeling something break inside his chest. Prospero studies him for a long moment, then nods. "Good. Now go find your father. Breakfast is being served in the main hall. We have much to discuss today." Ferdinand walks back into the villa, feeling as though he's lost something precious before he ever really had it. In the corridor, he nearly collides with Ariel, who is carrying a tray of fresh fruit. "He's testing you," Ariel says quietly, surprising Ferdinand with the unsolicited comment. "What?" "Prospero. He's testing you. He does this, sets up obstacles, watches how people respond, judges their character by their choices." Ariel's lined eyes are knowing, almost sympathetic. "If you truly care about Miranda, you'll need to prove it. And not by defying him, but by showing him you're worthy of her." Before Ferdinand can respond, Ariel has moved past him, disappearing around a corner like a ghost. In the main hall, the survivors from the Milano lady are gathering for breakfast. The long stone table is laden with food that seems impossible for such an isolated place. Fresh bread, fruit, cheese, eggs, even espresso from an expensive Italian machine. Gonzalo is already seated, looking remarkably refreshed considering the previous night's trauma. The three crew members sit together at one end, speaking quietly among themselves. Sebastian and Antonio enter together, both looking haggard despite having showered and changed. Alonso arrives with Ferdinand, immediately noticing his son's troubled expression but saying nothing. They take seats as Prospero enters from the kitchen, playing host with the ease of someone who has carefully choreographed every moment. "I trust everyone slept well?" Prospero asks, his tone cordial, but with an edge that makes everyone uncomfortable. The storm has passed, as storms do. Now we can address our situation clearly. "Our situation," Sebastian says, his anger from last night renewed by morning light, "is that you deliberately caused our shipwreck. You admitted as much. That's attempted murder. When we get back to civilization, you'll—" "I'll what?" Prospero interrupts, his voice still calm. "Face justice? From whom? The corrupt media empire that helped steal my company? The lawyers you've already bought? The industry that turned its back on me without question when you spread your lies?" He smiles, but there's no warmth in it. "We both know there is no justice for men like you in the normal world. That's why I had to create my own." Alonso raises a hand, attempting to moderate. "Prospero, please, let's discuss this rationally. If this is about money, about compensation, I'm certain we can reach an arrangement." "An arrangement," Prospero repeats, tasting the word like something bitter. "You think this is about money?" Antonio finally speaks, his voice hoarse. "Then what is it about, Prospero? What do you want from us?" Prospero sets down his coffee cup with deliberate care. "I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to lose something precious. I want you to understand the weight of what you took from me." He pauses, letting the words settle. "But more than that, I want the truth. I want public acknowledgement of what you did. I want Tempest Records returned to its rightful owner. And I want every artist you've exploited over the past 12 years to know who really built that company." "You're insane," Sebastian says flatly. "Even if we wanted to do that, which we don't, you have no leverage. We'll leave this island, report the shipwreck as an accident, and continue our lives. You'll remain here in exile, forgotten. Will you?" Prospero's smile is predatory now. "And how exactly will you leave? The Milano lady is destroyed. We're 50 kilometers from the nearest inhabited island. There's no radio transmission that I don't control, no boat that can reach us without my knowledge. You are completely dependent on my hospitality, my resources, my mercy." The reality of their situation settles over the group like a weight. They are prisoners, regardless of how comfortable their accommodations might be. Gonzalo clears his throat diplomatically. Surely we can find a reasonable solution. Prospero, you've made your point. You've demonstrated your power, your ingenuity, your justifiable anger. But keeping us here accomplishes nothing. Let us contact the mainland, arrange rescue, and we can discuss reparations, acknowledgments, whatever you feel is fair. What I feel is fair, Prospero says slowly, is for these men to confess what they did. Not to me. I already know. To the world, to the industry, to every artist they've cheated using the foundation I built. That's professional suicide, Antonio says. You're asking us to destroy ourselves. Yes, Prospero agrees simply. Just as you destroyed me. The tension is broken by a crash from outside, followed by shouting. Everyone turns toward the terrace doors, where Caliban has appeared, holding a large wrench, his face twisted with rage. Enough, Caliban shouts. Enough of your games, your revenge plots, your manipulation. These people mean nothing. You brought them here for your ego, for your vendetta. But what about me? What about my island? Prospero stands slowly, his expression darkening. Caliban, return to your quarters. This doesn't concern you. Doesn't concern me. Caliban moves into the hall, and several people instinctively shrink back from his wild energy. You took my mother's island. You treat me like a slave. You keep your daughter locked away like a prisoner. And now you bring more people here, more corruption, more of the world you claim to hate. Your mother sold me this island, Prospero says, his voice cold. She was dying and needed money for medication she was too far gone to benefit from. I gave her a peaceful death and took you in as an act of charity. Charity you repaid by trying to assault my daughter. I loved her, Caliban screams. I love her still. But you poisoned her against me, taught her to fear me, locked me away from her. Ferdinand is on his feet now, his protective instincts overriding his fear. You stay away from Miranda, he says, his voice steady despite his youth. Caliban's attention swings to Ferdinand, and his laugh is bitter. And here's the new suitor. The pretty boy pop star come to rescue the princess. You've been here one day, boy. One day. I've loved her for years. That's not love, Ferdinand says quietly. Love doesn't take by force. It doesn't frighten or threaten. The wisdom in these words coming from a 19-year-old pop star seems to surprise everyone, including Ferdinand himself. Caliban stares at him, the wrench still raised, trembling with conflicted emotions. Prospero moves between them, his presence commanding. Caliban, leave now. I won't ask again. For a long moment it seems Caliban might attack. But then something in his shoulders sags, the fight draining out of him as quickly as it came. He drops the wrench with a clang and backs toward the door. This island should be mine, he says one last time, his voice broken. Everything here should be mine. Then he's gone, disappearing into the bright morning. The silence he leaves behind is heavy and uncomfortable. Prospero returns to his seat as if nothing has happened, taking a sip of his espresso. As I was saying, he continues calmly, we have much to discuss about how this situation will be resolved, and we have all the time in the world to reach an understanding. The rest of the morning passes in a strange stalemate. Prospero retreats to his studio, leaving his guests to wander the villa like privileged prisoners. The crew members explore the beach, assessing the Milano lady's damage and finding it beyond any possibility of repair. Sebastian and Antonio huddle in quiet conference, their whispered arguments audible through closed doors. Alonso sits on the terrace, staring at the horizon as if willing rescue ships to appear. Ferdinand, restless and heartsick, finds himself drawn to the villa's music room, a smaller space adjacent to the main studio, filled with guitars and keyboards, its walls covered with vintage band posters and gold records. He picks up an acoustic guitar, an old Martin with a warm, mellow tone, and begins to play not one of his manufactured hits, but something he's been composing in his head since meeting Miranda, a melody that feels honest and raw. He doesn't hear her enter, doesn't notice Miranda standing in the doorway until she speaks. "That's beautiful. Is it yours?" Ferdinand's finger is still on the strings. "Miranda, your father said—" "My father says many things," Miranda interrupts, moving into the room with a defiant tilt to her chin that reminds Ferdinand strongly of Prospero himself. "But I'm not a child anymore, and I can make my own decisions about who I talk to." She sits on the floor near where Ferdinand perches on a vintage amplifier, maintaining enough distance to be proper, but close enough that the space between them feels charged. "Play more, please." Ferdinand hesitates, then continues, the melody flowing from his fingers like something that has always existed, just waiting to be discovered. Miranda listens with her eyes closed, swaying slightly, and when he finishes, she opens her eyes with a smile that makes his heart stutter. "You should record that." "My father has equipment that could." She stops, reality intruding on the moment. "But he wouldn't help you. Not when you're the son of the man he hates most in the world." "Tell me about your life here," Ferdinand says, setting the guitar aside. "I want to understand what it's like to grow up in a place like this." Miranda considers where to begin. "Imagine that every day is the same, but never boring. The sun rises, the waves crash. My father teaches me music theory, literature, mathematics, philosophy. Everything you'd learn in school, but just the two of us, him and me, and books and instruments. Ariel teaches me about technology, about synthesizers and recording equipment. I swim, I read, I watch MTV when the satellite works. I know the world exists out there, but it's like watching a film, something that doesn't include me." "That sounds lonely," Ferdinand says softly. "I didn't know it was lonely until yesterday," Miranda admits. "Until I saw you. Until I realized what I've been missing: other people, conversation, connection." "Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Ferdinand says. "I've been surrounded by people my entire life and felt alone every day. Everyone wants something from me. The label wants hits. The fans want fantasy. My father wants success. But you just want to talk. You just want to know me. The real me, not Ferdinand Milano, the pop star." They sit in silence for a moment, the weight of mutual understanding between them. "If things were different," Miranda says carefully, "if our fathers weren't enemies, if we'd met in the normal world, would you have noticed me?" "Miranda, you're all I can see," Ferdinand says with an honesty that surprises himself. "In a room full of models and actresses and professional, beautiful people, you would be the only one I'd notice. Because everyone else is performing and you're just being." Before Miranda can respond, Ariel appears in the doorway, their expression urgent. "Miranda, your father wants you. Now. And Ferdinand, your father is looking for you as well." Something's happening. They follow Ariel to the main studio, where Prospero stands surrounded by his equipment, multiple screens displaying news broadcasts. The Italian and Spanish news channels are all showing the same story: the missing Milano yacht, search and rescue operations underway, speculation about storms and possible piracy. Alonso, Antonio, and Sebastian are already present, staring at the screens with a mixture of hope and dread. "The world thinks you're missing, possibly dead," Prospero announces. "Search teams are combing the waters between Ibiza and Sardinia. Milano Media Group's stock has dropped 15%. Your business rivals are already circling Alonso, sensing weakness. Then let us contact them," Alonso pleads. "Let us tell them we're safe." "Why would I do that?" Prospero asks. "Your misfortune serves my purposes. Every hour you're missing is another hour your empire crumbles. Another hour your reputation as invincible deteriorates." "This is madness," Sebastian shouts. "You can't just keep us here indefinitely. Eventually someone will find this island." "Will they?" Prospero gestures to another screen, this one showing satellite imagery. "This island doesn't appear on most charts. The few that show it list it as uninhabited, a nature preserve with no landing rights. I own it through a series of shell companies that don't trace back to me. You could be 50 meters away and never know this place exists unless I want you to." Gonzalo, who has been silent until now, steps forward with the diplomatic courage that has defined his career. "Prospero, please. I understand your anger. I understand your need for justice. But these methods holding people prisoner, watching their lives collapse from a distance, this isn't justice. It's cruelty. And it's beneath the man who created some of the most beautiful music of our generation." Prospero turns to Gonzalo, and something in his expression softens slightly. "You, Gonzalo, are the only innocent here. You were never part of the conspiracy. You served your employers loyally, but you never participated in their betrayal. I have no quarrel with you. Then release us for my sake," Gonzalo says quietly. "I am an old man. I've served the Milano family for 15 years. These 3 crew members have families waiting for them. Ferdinand is just a boy who has done nothing wrong except be born to the wrong father. Let us go. Keep Antonio, keep Alonso, keep Sebastian if you must, but let the rest of us contact the mainland." Prospero considers this, his internal struggle visible on his face. He looks at his daughter standing beside Ferdinand, with her hand hovering near his, not quite touching, but clearly wanting to. He sees something in their body language, in the way they orient toward each other like planets in each other's gravity. "Miranda," Prospero says, his voice softer now. "Come here." Miranda approaches her father, and he takes her hands in his, studying her face as if seeing it for the first time. "You care for him, for Ferdinand, don't you?" Miranda hesitates, then nods. "I do, father. I know you don't approve. I know his family hurt you, but he's not them. He's kind and honest and talented, and he sees me as a person, not as your daughter or as a prize. Just me. You've known him for less than a day," Prospero says, but there's no harshness in his tone, only wonder. "You've told me that you knew Mother was your soulmate within hours of meeting her," Miranda counters gently. "You've told me that real connection doesn't need time, that it either exists or it doesn't. Were you lying to me, or does that only apply when it's convenient for your revenge?" Prospero actually laughs, a real laugh this time, genuine and surprised. "You've grown up when I wasn't looking. When did you become so wise?" "I had a good teacher," Miranda says. "One who taught me that people deserve to be judged by their character, not their circumstances. One who taught me that art is about truth, not about manipulation. One who taught me that power without compassion is just tyranny." The words hit Prospero like physical blows. He releases Miranda's hands and turns away, moving to the window that overlooks the Mediterranean. The sea is calm now, sparkling innocently, as if it had never been anything else. "I've spent 12 years planning this," Prospero says quietly, almost to himself. 12 years perfecting the technology, tracking movements, waiting for the perfect moment. And now that I have them here, now that I have the power to destroy them as they destroyed me, my own daughter tells me I'm acting like a tyrant. Antonio, who has been silent throughout this exchange, suddenly moves forward. His face is pale, his hands shaking. "Prospero, brother, I need to say something." Everyone turns to look at him. Antonio's carefully constructed facade has crumbled completely. He looks old, tired, defeated. "You're right," Antonio says, and his voice breaks. "About everything. We did steal from you. I stole from you, my own brother. I told myself it was business, that you were too weak, too idealistic, that I was doing what needed to be done. But the truth is, I was jealous. I was always jealous." He moves closer to Prospero, tears now streaming down his face. "You were brilliant, creative, beloved. Everyone respected you, admired you, wanted to work with you. And I was just the accountant, the businessman, the one who handled the boring details while you got all the glory. So when Alonso and Sebastian approached me with their plan, I didn't hesitate. I convinced myself I deserved it, that it was my turn." "Antonio," Alonso tries to interrupt, but Antonio waves him off. "No, let me finish. I need to finish." He looks directly at Prospero. "But I've regretted it every single day for 12 years. Every success felt hollow. Every platinum record felt like a theft. I turned Tempest Records into exactly what you accused me of, a soulless machine churning out disposable pop, because I didn't have your gift, your vision, your ability to recognize real talent. I destroyed the thing I was so jealous of, and in doing so I destroyed the best part of myself. The studio is completely silent. Even the equipment seems to have stopped humming. I don't expect forgiveness," Antonio continues. "I don't deserve it. But I will give you what you want. Public confession, the company returned whatever reparations you demand. Not because you're forcing me, but because it's what I should have done years ago." Prospero stares at his brother for a long moment, and the 12 years between them seem to compress into a single, heavy silence. When he finally speaks, his voice is tired, drained of the anger that has sustained him for so long. "I wanted to hear you say it," Prospero admits. "I wanted acknowledgement, confession, remorse. I wanted you to understand what you took from me. But now that I have it, now that you've given me what I thought I needed." He trails off, looking around at the studio, at the equipment he's used to orchestrate this elaborate revenge, at his daughter standing beside a boy she barely knows but clearly loves. "What have I accomplished, except becoming exactly what I hated? Someone who uses power to manipulate and control." He walks to the main console and begins shutting down systems, his fingers moving with practiced efficiency across switches and buttons. Screens go dark one by one, the electronic hum diminishing until the room is nearly silent. "Ariel," Prospero calls out, and the young prodigy appears immediately, as if they've been waiting just out of sight. "Prepare the boats, all of them. Our guests will be leaving." "Master?" Ariel's confusion is evident. "You heard me. And stop calling me master. You fulfilled every obligation you ever had to me. Your contract was paid off 5 years ago. You've stayed out of loyalty, and I've accepted it without question. But you're free, Ariel. You've always been free. It's time you understood that." Ariel's eyes fill with tears behind their dark liner. "Where would I go? This island, you, Miranda, this is my home. Then stay, Prospero says gently. But stay as an equal, as a partner, as a friend. Not as someone who owes me anything. He turns to address everyone in the room. The truth is, I brought you here for revenge, but I kept the revenge non-lethal, because I'm not actually a monster. I'm just a hurt, angry man who spent 12 years in exile, perfecting his bitterness like it was an art form. He looks at Antonio. You'll give your confession, but not because I'm forcing you. You'll do it because it's the right thing to do. And Tempest Records, he pauses, considering. Keep it. I don't want it anymore. That life, that world, it's poison. It took me away from my daughter, from what mattered. Build something better with it, or don't. That's your burden to carry now. Prospero Antonio begins, but Prospero shakes his head. What I want is simple. I want enough money to give Miranda a real education, to let her see the world beyond this island if she chooses. I want public acknowledgement of my contributions to the artists I discovered, the albums I produced. Not for ego, for history, so that the work itself isn't erased. And I want you to live with what you did, to try to be better, to maybe prevent the next talented idealist from being destroyed by cynical businessmen. Alonso steps forward, his executive composure returning now that there's a negotiation to be had. That's more than fair, more than generous, considering we can draft agreements, set up trusts, issue press releases acknowledging your foundational role in the company. And Ferdinand, he looks at his son. Perhaps it's time you had a real producer, someone who cares about the music instead of just the marketing. Ferdinand's eyes widen. You mean? If Prospero is willing, Alonso says, and if you're willing to work, really work, not just show up and sing what you're told. Prospero looks at Ferdinand, then at Miranda, seeing the hope in both their young faces. One album, he says finally. I'll produce one album for you, Ferdinand. But we do it right, real musicians, real songs, real emotion. No manufactured pop, no focus group-tested nonsense. And Miranda assists. She's been learning production her entire life. It's time she had practical experience. Father, really? Miranda's excitement is radiant. Really? But Prospero's expression becomes stern. Ferdinand, you understand that dating my daughter means being under my constant scrutiny. It means proving every day that you're worthy of her. It means no rock star behavior, no tabloid scandals, no treating her like another conquest. I understand, sir, Ferdinand says seriously. I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of her, if that's what it takes. It will take at least that long. Prospero agrees, but there's a hint of a smile now. Sebastian, who has been uncharacteristically quiet, finally speaks. So that's it? We all just go back to our lives? Pretend this never happened? No, Prospero says firmly. You'll never pretend this didn't happen. You'll remember that actions have consequences. That betrayal leaves scars. That power used cruelly eventually turns on itself. You'll be better, or you'll fail. That choice is yours. Gonzalo, his eyes wet with tears of relief, approaches Prospero and extends his hand. You're a good man, Prospero Dante, a better man than your enemies deserved. Prospero shakes his hand. I'm a flawed man, trying not to become a monster. There's a difference. Over the next hours, the villa transforms from prison to departure point. The boats, a small fleet Prospero has maintained in a hidden cove, are prepared. Supplies are loaded. Ariel coordinates communications with the Coast Guard, crafting a story about shelter on an uncharted island, about a reclusive benefactor who rescued them.